Okay, so this one will be a continuation of it. So continuing to talk about the formative assessment. So we said assessment is two, can be informal or formal, and then the formal assessment can be formative or summative assessment. So looking at the formative assessments, when we think of formative assessment, we have this cycle that we go through, beginning with identifying the learning goals or outcomes. So it all begins with having a clear outcome. What is the outcome that I want to achieve? And based on the outcome you're thinking of, you'll be planning your learning opportunities, your learning activities, what content you'll be giving them, how you're going to be teaching them. And all of those things will be decided based on the outcomes that you are intending for the class. And once you have taught that, then you will be assessing it. So you set the goals, you teach in creative ways with selective content, and then you move to assessing. And once you have assessed, you reflect on the results, and you go to the improvement. Okay, based on my reflection, what should be improved in terms of your class management, in terms of the instructional strategies that you're using, and even in terms of the students' learning. So this becomes like a cycle. Begins with your learning outcomes, and that will determine your content and how you'll be teaching it, and based on the objectives that you've set and based on the ways that you have taught, you'll be assessing it. And once you assess, then you reflect on the data, on the results that you have. And based on the results, the purpose of it is improvement, improving the student learning. How can I improve my student learning? Okay, so effective formative assessment tools could be these three areas. We'll be looking at them: purposeful questioning, teacher feedback, self and peer assessment. So research, research has shown that three forms of formal assessment are particularly effective for helping students learn: and purposeful questioning, teacher feedback, and self and peer assessment. So these three are important in formative assessments. So purposeful questioning, teacher feedback is important, and also the self and also the peer assessment. Looking at purposeful questioning. So we'll look at the purposeful questioning. Questioning is used to keep students' attention, short, factual, targeting one student. And when you come to a person, can you do this? Can you explain this? That person can be, you can keep that person's attention as you ask questions, because they will be eager. Will I be asked? Will I? And therefore they will be attentive to the session. Gauge student understanding. To what extent has the student been understanding what you're saying? So open-ended questions help that. Would you explain this? What do you think we meant by it? Okay. Open-ended questions help you to gauge a student's understanding. Involve multiple students and also discussions. So having different people to be involved in the discussions, even as a class you can do the discussions. So instead of just targeting one student, it could be an open-ended, different people getting involved in it. Enhance class learning. So it keeps attention, it helps you to see how much the students are understanding, and it also helps you to enhance class learning. With open-ended, involve multiple students sharing different knowledge. So it's not only from you that the students learn, the students also learn from one another, especially with adults learning. Everybody that's in your classroom, they come with a lot of experience. So when different students contribute to what you're teaching, other students will be learning from one another. When you ask a question, this is a tip. Don't rush to answer the question just because the class is silent. Give the students about 20 to 30 seconds to just think, because our brains doesn't immediately work. I know there are some people you ask, and before you even ask, they have the answers for you. But there are some other ones, like for me, I need time to process the question before I speak. So you need to be able to give people some time to respond. Just because the class is silent, it doesn't mean you have to answer that your own question. Okay. These are different types of questions. I will not be able to go through it. Let me just look at the first few of them. So we have the open-ended questions. An example is, what is your reaction to this poem? Diagnostic questions. What is the nature of the problem in this short story? Information questions. What are the name of the place where the law of Moses was given? Challenge questions. What evidence is there to support your conclusion? This kind of questions. Sequence questions. Given limited resources, what are the two most important steps that will be taken? So you can have all of these different types of questions. These are open-ended kind of questions, different questions that will engage the students, helps you to gauge how much the students are learning. It helps you to keep the attention of the students. So you have to have different questions that you will use in the process of teaching. As you are teaching, you need to be able to assess if the students are learning, and you use different questions to be asking them. Of course, you don't want it to be a threatening one. You want it to be careful. You want to be careful in the way you give. Feedback is the second one. Feedback, giving clear feedback after a learning situation or an exercise or an assignment helps the learner to, one, identify strength and weakness, and also determine ways of improvement. So it's important for us to give students feedback on their learning as much as possible. As we'll see later on, it has to happen immediately. It helps the students to see, and also for you to see, the strength and weakness of a student, and it helps you to see how the students can be improved, the teaching learning process can be improved and all that. But mostly feedback is to help the student to see how the student can improve. So if you have asked the student to write something, you give the student feedback on what he has written or she has written so that they can write better. Debriefing and reflection are examples of feedback. Debriefing after an activity, you sit down and you talk to the student, what do you think about it? Reflect on the work the student has done. And as you reflect on this, as you help the student even, help him or her reflect on the work that they have done, it helps with their improvement and see where the weakness is and how they can strengthen it. Tips for effective feedback. Feedback should be given in a neutral, non-judgmental manner. Focus on the action, not on the person. This is something we should be very careful with. When we give feedback, we're giving feedback about the work the student is doing and not the person. So you've done a lousy job. No. Your work could be improved. The writing you've submitted can be improved in this area. So we're talking about the work and not necessarily about the person. It should be clear and to the point, so the learner knows what to focus on. So it shouldn't be a broad thing, a broad feedback. It should be specific enough that the student sees what it is and can actually work on it. So look at this feedback, the poor feedback. You are a bad student. This is bad. Because it's attacking the student. Instead, you should say your technique needs improvement. So we're talking about the technique and not necessarily about the person. You don't even know this. Instead of saying that, your paper is well researched. Excellent. Instead of saying excellent, you can say your paper is well researched. Your objectives are clearly stated. Because when you just say excellent, what is excellent about it? But when you state it specifically, it is well researched. It is clearly stated. You are pointing out exactly what is done well. So, tips for effective feedback. It should be given as soon as possible after the event or learning situation. Use the sandwich method of giving feedback. When we give feedback, we use the sandwich method. What that means is we give a positive feedback and then the negative feedback, and then you sandwich it with another positive feedback. So that you don't hit a person with the negative feedbacks only. You end up discouraging the student. Strengths, areas for improvement, concluding positive statement. Okay? Focus on one or two areas of improvement at a time. More than that, it could be overwhelming. So just be careful on the number of negative feedback that you give. When it is too many of them, recognize that it could have a negative effect on the student. Then the third area is self and peer assessment. Teachers don't have enough time to give feedback to all the students. Self and peer assessments give students a chance to learn through analyzing and evaluating their own work and also the work of other students. So you can ask the students, look at your work and see, based on this rubric, based on this, what do you think? And you allow the students to reflect on their own work. But they can also evaluate other students' work and be able to give feedback to one another as well. The teacher should provide clear assessment criteria and examples in order for students to do a self-assessment as well as give feedback to their peers. So there must be something clear, a clear criteria for them to look at. Summative assessments, so we looked at the formative. The summative assessments, their purpose is to assess what the student has learned at the end of a learning period. It could be a unit, it could be a course, it could be a program. So formative is happening throughout the whole duration of the course. Summative is, as the name itself shows, it's summative. It's at the end of a course, at the end of a program. Results of summative assessments are used to make decisions about passing or failing and placement, grade, rank, etc. of the students. So the summative, mostly added together with the formative, they will determine the passing or the failing of students. They include unit tests, graded assignments, presentations, final exams. In our cases, it is formative for the most part throughout the course. You've been working on your own, and each one of them have been graded. And there is a bigger assignment that is your work related to the book review, your work related to the philosophy of education, and your teaching assignment that you'll be teaching in a classroom setting. All of those ones are summative assessments. Okay. In order to be effective, assessments need to always be tied in or aligned to the educational objectives and instructional strategies and content that is used. So we've said assessment definitely has to be related with the objectives. The objectives also determine the instructional strategies. So when we do assessments, our assessments will be determined by the objectives we have and also by the instructional strategies that we used. So the way we have taught the course and the objectives that we have will determine the assessments that we will be giving. I'll give us an example here. Suppose the objective is, at the end of the session, students will be able to bake traditional Ethiopian bread. Okay, this is the objective. You will be able to bake Ethiopian bread. Okay, now how do I go about it? How do I teach you about it? So suppose I taught you in this way, instructional strategy. In the kitchen, the instructor will show students how to bake traditional Ethiopian bread, and they will practice it. So that's the way you learn. So the objective was to bake bread, and then you've learned it in a kitchen where it will be demonstrated for you, and you yourself was practicing to bake the traditional Ethiopian bread. Now, how would you then assess if the students have learned how to bake Ethiopian bread? One is, you'll tell me which one you think. Write a one-page essay. Would it be this question? Write a one-page essay on the history of bread making in Ethiopia. What do you think? Yeah, that probably won't work. It won't show our objective. For one, students will be able to bake. Okay, we can't see ability of baking by asking them to write. Okay, so you won't be achieving. And the way you've taught them is also in the class, is in the kitchen, practically. So you probably want to assess it in a practical way. So bake bread using the technique you learned and bring it to the class to be sampled for us to enjoy. The teacher and the department head will be the judges. At the end of the session, tea will be provided, and we will enjoy the aboba shai. Okay, so this would be a proper way of assessing it, because both your instructional strategy and also the objectives, they lend themselves to this kind of assessment. Okay, I hope that's clear. Um, to assess learning, it is important to clearly state your learning objectives. This part is a review for you. So to assess certain learning, you need to have your objectives. We've already been saying that, okay? Before you even teach. Example, you can say, compare the statement. I want to go, and I want to go to church by taxi this Sunday. Which one can be better evaluated? I want to go. Wes, I want to go to church by taxi this Sunday. So the second one clearly is very clear, and it can be very easily assessed, because I want to go. To go where? Okay. So I want to go to church. Can you assess it? Were you able to go to church? Were you able to go to church by taxi? Okay. So it has to have clear verbs, clearly stated, so that it can be assessed. Each learning objective should be measurable, it should be clear, it should be concise. Then it is possible to assess if the student has achieved that objective or not. Okay, this is Bloom's taxonomy, and you know that. And your objectives can be written at any of these levels. You can write your objectives at remembering, recall. This is the information level, comprehension level, application, analysis, evaluation, create. Okay, it can be designed at any of these different levels. Now, designing assessment to match your objectives. Assessments have to be designed to match the stated learning objectives. We've already said this. So they have to be designed to match the stated learning objective. Choose the type of question that will best assess student learning at the intended level. That's another question. So the way you've stated your objective will also determine the way you'll be assessing. Sometimes you may have an objective that is at a knowledge level. When your objective is at a knowledge level, then your assessment question will be at a knowledge level as well. If it is comprehension level, then your assessment question will be comprehension level. So your level of objectives, the verbs you used in your objectives, will determine at what level you'll be assessing. If your objective was knowledge and you have been teaching at a knowledge level, and if you want to assess the students at an analysis level, that would be unfair because you've not taught at that level. So let me give us examples. Knowledge or recall. What is the definition of a noun? List the planets in our solar system. This is knowledge level, and the objective would have been at that level as well. Understanding. Summarize the story in your own words. Explain the term industrial revolution. These are understanding. Application level. Using information to solve problems. Give me an example for that in our society. How can we use Pythagoras theorem? Some of us have forgotten this Pythagoras theorem a while ago. So how can you use the Pythagoras theorem to calculate the highest tree? Analysis. This is reasoning, breaking apart something. Identify which statements are fact and which ones are opinion. How did the character in the story change after her encounter with God? Evaluation, the idea of judging. What was the most important part of that story and why? What is your opinion about the school policy for grades and extracurricular activities? These are all questions related with evaluation. That means your objectives are also on those levels. Synthesis, constructing, integrating, creating something new. What do all these pictures have in common? State a conclusion supported by these facts. Describe a generalization that follows from the given data. Okay. Now coming to setting up questions. Setting up questions for assessment. There are different ways, different questions, different ways to assess. One is selection items. This is very common for us. Multiple choice questions, or true false questions, or matching. These are selection items. Usually they assess knowledge and understanding. They can be used to assess higher order cognition at times if they are worded correctly. Example, questions based on a case study or a passage which is given. So for the most part, this could be assessing lower level, but if you set them nicely well, they can also evaluate higher level using case studies, which we have already talked about. If you bring a case study and you get the students to engage in that case study, evaluate it, analysis of it, application of it based on the case studies, so you can teach on a higher level as well. Now, this kind of questions, they take a lot of time, but once you've spent your time doing it, setting it, then grading will be very easy. Supply items, these are fill in the blanks, short answer questions. Usually they assess knowledge and understanding. Again, they can also be used to assess higher order cognition if they are worded correctly. Example questions based on, again, case studies and passages which are given. You give them a passage, and based on those passages, you get them to study it, analyze it, and then come up with short answer questions so they can evaluate higher level learning as well. Now, this kind of questions, they are easy to grade. They're objective. Coming up with those questions, they can be difficult if you have to come up with case studies and all of those, but then the grading is relatively easier. Not as easier as the multiple choice or true false ones, but okay. The last one that we'll be looking at is essay items. These ones, they assess students' higher order thinking skills, analysis, evaluation, or synthesis. So these are essay questions, and they analyze on a higher level right at the beginning. It gives the student the best opportunity to demonstrate understanding of the subject matter. Students need to organize their ideas and present it in a clear and logical manner. It takes time to write these answers. It gets the students to reflect on it. It takes time to organize it and write it out. But then it tests higher level learning, and also is a good way for students to put together everything that they have been learning, to demonstrate the things that they have been learning. When you're just taking ABC, that doesn't necessarily mean I have learned it, but when you cause the student to reflect on something, to analyze it, and to be able to put it together, to organize and present it for you, you'll be able to teach on a higher level and a better way, I guess. And then it's this kind of questions, they are easy to set. I can just shoot the question. It's very easy to set. It takes a lot of time to grade, however, and they are usually very subjective for the teacher. So grading essay questions, as you know, are very difficult and not easy as the other types, but they are easy to set. But then they are good ways for students learning. Students with good language and writing skills, they might get a better grade on these ones because they are better able to express themselves. When our English is not so great and we can't speak it, we can't write it very well, we struggle. So those of us who may struggle with English, our performance in it may be relatively lower. But those who are good speakers, they may get a better work on it. Using a grading rubric, when you test essays, it helps you to be objective and fair. So use a grading rubric when you grade essays, because you will know how you're grading. So when you grade student A, you'll be grading the same way when you grade student B, because you're following a certain rubric. So it's important for you to set a rubric. What are you looking for in each of the questions? And then based on those rubrics, you grade that essay. Otherwise, you'll be subjective. I like this student. I love this one. I love what he's saying. And then you give that student a 90. And another student may have done the same thing, but then maybe you don't like, or maybe the way he has written things is not so clear, and you grade him down. So using rubrics will be important when you do essays. So here it is. We're done with the feedback, evaluation, assessment. And with this, we've finished with our class presentations, teachings, sessions. You'll be working on your other works that you need to be finishing. Thank you so very much, and I hope it was helpful for you.